Hey folks, welcome to another episode of the Brand Builder Show. This one is going to be a great episode. We're going to talk about a little bit of a different topic to some of the other focuses of the show, and that is going to be all things wholesale. Can you start a wholesale income stream on the side of your private label brand? How do you do it? What are the things you should be looking out for? All of those nuggets coming up, and to talk through that, we have a wholesale wizard with us on the show today, Isaiah Fritz. Welcome to the show today, Isaiah.
Hey, thank you so much, Ben. I'm excited, and not only to talk about wholesale, but taking that to the next level and exclusive wholesale.
Ooh, you got some. You got me excited there. I'm looking forward to talking about that. It's going to be good. I think it's a topic that, well, I know in our community it often comes up because as you're building a private label brand, you know the goal is to try and leave as much money in it as possible to snowball it and look towards that exit. And then the issue of cash flow comes up. Well, I sure would love a maybe a more cash flowing business, and maybe you'll kind of tell me that this is one of the myths of wholesale. It's not as as good cash flow as maybe I said, but we'll get into all that obviously. But the conversations we have are, could this be like a side hustle on my side hustle, or could this become even sometimes the main thing? I know for a lot of people, wholesale is the main thing, and it can grow absolutely massive. So I think there's a concept, maybe some misconceptions about what wholesale is and what can be possible with it. So I'm excited to dive into it with you. Before we do get into the meat and the bones of what wholesale is and how to really master it, give us a bit of a background about yourself, what your history has been, and what's got you to this point now.
Absolutely. So, Ben, I did not start with private label. I started with buying stuff at yard sales with my mom and then flipping it on eBay, right? And then I eventually got into flipping stuff on Amazon. So I kind of was always in just the flipping business. And then kind of gradually doing that more and more, I got into retail arbitrage, which is going to retail stores, buying products on clearance and scanning them with your Amazon app and selling them on Amazon. So then naturally, after you do that for a while, the next step is wholesale, where you're saying, hey, I'm buying this product at retail stores, but I'm limited to the amount of stock that is at my local Walmart or whatever. So I need to be able to have more volume. So that is just the natural next step for a arbitrage seller is wholesale. And so that's kind of how I got to it. And there was a lot of ups and downs in between. At one point in 2018, 17, right in that area, Amazon sent me a notice and said, hey, we've had a few counterfeit complaints. And I said, counterfeit complaints, okay. They said, if you can't prove that these products are not counterfeit, we are completely shutting down your account. And as of right now, there will be a hold on all the money. That we will not giving you any disbursements at all. And so I was like, okay, all right. So I went and got invoices from my liquidation and retail stores and all this, and Amazon was not accepting it. They were saying, no, we want invoices from the manufacturers or distributors. So I couldn't provide that. So Amazon had eventually, and 2 months later, shut down my account, held over $40,000 from me, which was everything I had at that time when I was just getting started in the whole Amazon game. I was only in it for like a year and a half at that point, 2 years. So I was, I was building momentum. Yeah. And so I couldn't get a hold of anyone. Everything Amazon sent me was that, robotic response to everything. And so finally, I had, I was hiring some consultants and everything. So I was shut down for 8 months. I eventually got a hold of an Amazon, as many Amazon leadership VPs, directors, whatever I could find on LinkedIn, and because I had never used LinkedIn before that, but somebody said, "Hey, try LinkedIn," and so I tried it, and I eventually got a hold of Jeff Bezos's technical advisor. So what that is there every year Jeff Bezos would have a technical advisor, which was basically a shadow. So the current CEO, Andy Jassy at Amazon, was Jeff Bezos' technical advisor in the late 90s for a year, and would shadow Jeff Bezos and just help him, throughout his day. And basically Jeff Bezos could download on this person, and then this person would be put into some sort of leadership position in Amazon. So I got a hold of his technical advisor that year in 2017-18, and I got a call within 2 days from Seattle, which from his assistant, that said, "Hey, we're really sorry. We personally apologize what Amazon's done to you, and here's all your money, and here's your account back." And so I was just like,
Wow.
thank you so much. I was crying.
Yeah.
But so anyway, so that really pushed me to say, I need to buy from manufacturers or distributors. I have to go into wholesale. That's my only option, because I'm not going to go through this again, right? Or not do Amazon at all, which I was highly considering not doing Amazon at all and just doing real estate or something else. But I found out, I was like, the only thing I've ever done with my life is flip products online. So I guess I'll stick to it for a little longer. So anyway, so that's how my journey really started with developing manufacturer distributor relationship.
And what does the week look like for you now? Are you still doing a lot of wholesale stuff? I know you've got sort of different events and stuff which we can, talk about as well. But what's like an average week for you at the moment? What's the focus for you?
So well, I will say that what I'm currently doing in my business is, the last few years we've been transitioning from resale wholesale to exclusive wholesale or brand partnership. So the problem with wholesale is that you're competing against a bunch of other wholesalers, and you're all in the same ASIN, and a lot of times it's a big price war. And because everybody's got stock at FBA, and you're just trying to sell it, and the price is going to the bottom. So yes, there's always been money in wholesale. There always will be some money in wholesale, but it's hard to really scale a business that you can't really predict. This might be a really good seller this month, but it might be a really bad seller next month. So we've been focusing on exclusive wholesale relationships where we are going directly to the brands and saying, hey, instead of you worrying about Amazon and having all these wholesalers do it, or you just putting any thought into it, we'll just buy your product wholesale and sell it on Amazon and be the only seller and do all of your advertising, all of your picture updates and A+ content, storefronts, and everything there is with Amazon, keyword research, SEO, all that. We'll do the full package. And what they've done, they've already built demand. They've already built a brand. They've already have the product. They have the customers. We're just optimizing on Amazon, and we're getting a sliver of that with margin, right? And so that's really where we're transitioning with Online Selling Partner, which is my brand, is to really focus on that model. And what we've seen is that model is way more successful, and it's also way better for the brands that you're working with. So I think that exclusive wholesale is something that is not really spoken about at all, or very much. There's not a lot of companies out there that want to put that much time and energy into a brand that they're working with to do like a one-stop shop. A lot of people just want to, hey, I just want to buy a product from a distributor and buy a pallet of it and then throw it on Amazon and boom, I'll make money. It's not that simple. I wish it was. It's that simple, but it never lasts. It never lasts for you're buying the same product for years and years. It's always like that product sells really well for a couple months until another wholesale company figures out where you're getting it from, and the same thing. It's this constant churn. So when we're in the wholesale business, it's hard for us to be selling the same product for more than like 3 to 6 months, unless you have some sort of really deep relationship with the brand at whatever level.
Yeah.
So
if you spoke to someone that's just started to get into this kind of business now, then would you say completely avoid the traditional form of wholesale, or would you say it's a good place to get started and learn the process and then move on to what you're doing, or straight into what you're doing?
I think that if you're completely new to Amazon, just starting small at regular wholesale, regular going to stores, flipping product. You got to get experience under your belt and just get some cash flow going. One thing you said before, and I don't think is a myth, is with compared to private label, wholesale you make money a lot quicker. Like with private label, you might be 6 months, a year out until you're actually can bring something home. Because you're just reinvesting and you're growing your brand, which is great. Private label is better in the long run because you have a brand, you have something that is a sellable asset, something that could cash flow for years and years or whatever. If you really build a brand, don't just build a private label business that is a commoditized product, something like, don't just sell another rubber ducky, right? Build a brand, right? So I think with wholesale that it's a great. There's always money in it. It's a great way to just make quick cash if you find a deal. Like it's an arbitrage thing. You say, hey, I can buy this at this distributor for this price, and it's selling on Amazon for this price. I can make some money in between. Don't think it's going to be like that for years and years because it probably won't be. But at the moment, you seize the opportunity, you grab it, and you make it happen, and it's great. And there's people that do it at scale, but it's a really hard business to scale profitably and a very high level. But there's a lot of people that do and make a couple $100,000 a year. I'll say one of my best wholesale flips was in 2020. Everyone wanted yeast because they were making bread at home, right? So what I found out is I could buy a pound of yeast for $2.50 and wholesale, and then sell it. The normal price on Amazon was like $9, but because of the pandemic, the supply and demand, the price was going up to $20, $25, $25. So not like a huge price increase compared to some things, but it was enough where all that extra money was just bottom line profit. Because with Amazon fees, if you're selling something at $8, $9, Amazon fees and shipping take up most of your profit right there. So if you're just adding an extra $10 on top of it, that's just profit in your pocket. So I was able to get a hold of like 20,000 plus units of yeast and sell them all in like a week because it was such a high demand, like $25. So I made a couple $100,000 in insane. Less than a week. But then I couldn't find any more yeast because all the distributors were sold out, right? So like I said, it worked really well. And then I had back orders for more yeast. And when my back orders finally came in, the yeast price on Amazon had dropped back to $10, $8. So then it was a break even or loss. I actually lost on some of my second orders, but I made enough profit in the beginning where I was like, wow, this is a lot of money, and just on one flip like that. So there's definitely money in wholesale, especially if you could find deals like that. I definitely don't find deals like that every day. But the best way to find, I know I'm kind of getting into everything, but
no, it's good. It's good. Yeah.
But for me, the best way to find good partners, good brands to start working with is look for. I always tell people, is there anything on Amazon that you've ever searched for that was either more expensive than normal or wasn't there? And so those two things, if you've ever had that in your own experience, or ask your friends, they're like, I was looking for that on Amazon. I couldn't find it. Or it was way more expensive on Amazon than it was everywhere else. Those are opportunities. Those are places where you can go and say, hey, if it's not on Amazon, it's a really easy conversation to have with a company, with a distributor that's, to say, hey, I can get that on Amazon. Or if it's higher than everywhere else, there's probably a arbitrage that you can make. And so you might be wondering, how do you build relationships with brands and buy the product? It's actually really simple. All you have to do is identify the brand you want to go after and reach out to them and say, hey, can I buy direct from you, or do you have a list of distributors that I could work with? Sometimes the brands are getting way more controlled on their distribution, but if it's a small brand, which I would recommend starting with small brands or brands that are not on Amazon, they're a lot more lenient to just let anybody buy. But brands that have more experience and bigger, it's going to be harder. Like, it's going to be harder for you to go out and sell Apple phones or
Mm.
KitchenAid mixers and stuff because they have a very, mature business. A very, don't try. So just try to go after the niches because the riches are made in the niches, right? So,
Mhm.
so anyway, so it's very easy. And then, I mean, I remember even uh, Hasbro, as big as that company was, they sent me a list of distributors. I just said, "Hey, I would want a list of distributors," and they sent me a list of distributors, and I started reaching out to those distributors, and was able to get the hot toys at
Mm.
Christmas time. Right? I only made money at Christmas because it was only the hot toys or whatever, and you have to time it right and everything.
Yeah.
But it's a fun. It's arbitrage is fun. Wholesale is fun if you like playing that game,
Yeah.
but it's hard. It's not like private label where it's long term money.
Yeah. Yeah. Do
So,
you, because one of the things that we would do with private label, for instance, is fire up one of the tools, is putting in certain criteria, X amount of revenue, X amount of reviews, all that kind of stuff. Is that something that you would do to get like a wider view for wholesale, or are you very much down that manual approach that you mentioned there?
Um, there are tools out there that I use now, like, especially as I'm scaling my business, I'm doing bigger. I mean, if you're starting out, I would just start without the tools because here's the thing: everybody uses the tools. So
Mm.
those opportunities you find on tools, some bigger wholesale company out there, because there's some pretty decent sized wholesale companies out there, are probably already going after that opportunity, and you're just you're behind after it shows up in the data. But uh, a lot of it's weird in the wholesale. You kind of a lot of them think backwards. First, they find a distributor, and a distributor might carry 10,000 different SKUs. They'll find all these SKUs, which will and they'll have a list of SKUs that'll have UPC codes, and then you take those UPC codes, and then you put them through a tool. There's a lot out there. We use a tool called Analyzer.tools.
Hmm.
We also use Tactical Arbitrage,
Hmm.
where you can find you can put in your list of UPCs, thousands of UPCs, and it'll say, hey, this is profitable, this is not,
Hmm.
and they kind of work a backwards approach
Sure.
where private label you're kind of going in the other way. So,
Hmm.
but there is a tool called Smart Scout that we
Hmm.
use that we is looking at all the brands on Amazon, and you can put in filters like, hey, I want brands that there's already maybe 5 or 10 Amazon FBA sellers selling it, and I think sometimes people think if there's already 5 or 10 sellers, then I can be the 11th and still make money.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's your model, there is money to be made there. Or and you could filter out, hey, I want brands with this size and blah blah blah, and you could do all your filters and come out with, hey, here's a list of brands that you would be that I might try to contact for wholesale.
Yeah.
So that's kind of as Scott Needham has a lot of good
Mm.
content
Yeah, I
on
follow Scott.
that
Yeah,
stuff. Yeah,
he's great. I love his stuff.
yeah,
But on the whole, I don't know. Obviously, as you can probably tell, much about the subject. On the whole, so I just thought it would be cool to maybe just throw some myths at you. That are common things I hear, and you can, well, dispel them or otherwise. Like the first one that I suppose have feared in the past and thought, well, I don't want to do that in case it affects my account is, as you mentioned at the start, counterfeit claims, issues with having to
yes.
prove where you got the products from. Is this like a widespread issue with wholesale, or are there things you can do to mitigate that?
As long as you're getting good invoices from reputable suppliers or distributors that
Mhm.
in that supply chain can link back to the manufacturing point,
Yeah.
um, you have no problems. I
Okay.
haven't had any problems. Like I said, I still sell lots of wholesale today of products. Where you get into issues is if you just buy pallets from a random liquidation supplier and stuff. That's where you kind of get into more of
Mm.
that issues.
I actually tried that. Literally, it must have been 4 or 5 years ago. There was a guy on the Helium 10 podcast years ago talking about how he'd made loads of money doing these liquidation pallets, and it's the next big thing. And I tried it because I thought, as we're talking about now, like a little bit of a side hustle on the side of the private label stuff to help with cash flow, and it was such hard work, man.
Oh,
Such a
it's
pain.
terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now it's hard work. It's a full time job, but um, yeah, I don't recommend getting in liquidation now for Amazon.
Yeah.
Maybe for eBay or other channels, local selling or something, but not for Amazon. Amazon's just becoming way too controlled, and they're trying to
Mm.
become more of a brand centric marketplace, which is good for us.
Yeah.
But anyway, the other thing that you could do is if you know of brands that you like or that are not on Amazon, or they have major problems on Amazon. Either they're not even FBA, or they only have like one photo on their listings or whatever. You know, those are also good wholesale opportunities where you can have a brand partnership is what I'm doing, where I'm going to them and saying, hey, how about like let us just sell your stuff. Let us be the only seller. We'll buy the products wholesale. We'll sell it on. There's no Amazon. There's no risk to you. This is 100% all upside, right?
Hmm.
And I think like it's easy. It's fairly easy to convince smaller brands to do that. I mean, it gets more challenging where I'm at, where like my minimum brand, I want them to be doing like $1 million a year on Amazon and such. So it's as we've gotten bigger, it's because it's harder to convince these bigger brands. But the smaller brands, they would love for someone to go out there and represent them and put the work into it. And
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I think it can be very lucrative. I'll tell you, the first brand I did it with was a local candle company. I literally just typed in manufacturers near me. I went and knocked on doors, found this candle company, and and said, "Hey, can I sell your products on Amazon?" They said, "Well, we have somebody that's already doing that." And I said, "Well, give me a chance." So my first month, I sold 1,000 candles, and the other guy sold 18. And so they said, "All right, we'll let you represent our brand." And so I ended up building that into a $2 million a year revenue brand in just a couple years.
Very
Just
cool.
and they were already on D2C. They already had the demand. They had a very unique product, and it worked well for a while. Obviously, then just like with anything, lots of Chinese competitors came, and lots of so that really diluted the market, and it was a lot harder to sell. It was a USA made candle product, and it was hard. Anyway, the relationship got rocky in the last couple of years, but for a while there, it was great, and it was really got my feet wet on how to really represent a brand. And if you're
Yeah.
already doing it on private label, they've already there's a lot of brands that already did a lot of the hard work. They already got the product, they market fit. They're already spending money on ads. They're already driving traffic and eyeballs to Amazon, even if they mean to or not, because people, 70% of people will choose Amazon if given the option in America anyway,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
because they want that prime shipping and everything. And so if they're underrepresented on Amazon, just getting that extra channel, you're just tapping into a market they've already created,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you can maybe optimize it and make it better. So that's something that I highly recommend everybody do is to really consider if you're a private label seller. It's not hard. It's a very adjacent territory to reach out to other brands and say like, hey, I'm doing this for my brand. Look how successful I'm doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can also do this for your brand at no cost to you.
And I think that is, I always say that to our community. It's such a good opportunity to increase your income streams if you get good at selling on Amazon. E-commerce doesn't have to be Amazon. Could be, email. It could be
Yes.
paid traffic. If you get good at certain disciplines within e-commerce, there's so much money to be made by helping other brands with these services. Because there's lots of big brands, like you've mentioned, that don't want to get into all the details of selling on Amazon, the details of running Facebook ads. They'd rather just pay someone to do it well for them,
Yeah.
and get it off their plate. So it's very, I like how you said that there, that actually you can take these skills that you've built up by creating your own listing, creating your own A+ content, all of that stuff, and then bringing it over to wholesale as well. So yeah, it's interesting. So are you then buying the products? You don't have like a revenue share deal or anything like that. You're simply buying the products in bulk from them at wholesale prices.
Yes, we're buying in bulk at wholesale prices, and we obviously look at the numbers with them. And sometimes, we try not to be greedy, right? We try to take as little margin that still makes sense. Where sometimes it's cheap. We buy at a better price than some of their other wholesale partners because we know that it's better for the long term relationship because they might be. We want to have them long term, right? We don't
Yeah.
want them thinking like in 3 years. Well, they're taking so much margin. Why don't we do this ourselves? Like we want to constantly provide more value that it doesn't make sense for them to do it
Yeah.
themselves. It's like why would I invest all the time and energy when because it does. Amazon takes a lot of time and energy, and everybody does this. I mean, there's nothing in wholesale or business that is a get rich quick. It's just a get rich easier
Yeah.
than
Yeah.
some of the other things, right?
Yeah. For
So
sure.
I
For
think
sure.
so that I think that if you take your skill sets that you already have and you can just apply them to another brand, you're setting yourself up for something like private label. It's long-term money. You can deal with that brand for 5-10 years or whatever. You'll be able to deal with a product that you love, and it's just a lot better model. And so yeah,
How are you ensuring that exclusivity? Are you getting sort of binding contracts written
contracts,
up,
yeah,
etc.?
yeah. We have an actual exclusive contracts, in that we're the only distributor on Amazon and all that stuff. And
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. In terms of then just some other myths to try and round out
Yes,
the whole
myths.
perception and concept, you've mentioned there about margins because that was one of them. Is there's a common feeling maybe in our private label world that to do wholesale or arbitrage, there's very thin margins. Speaking to that for us.
Sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, there's private label sellers that are on thin margins, right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's every
Yeah.
business. There's private label sellers that are on negative margin, and there's wholesale people that are on negative margin. So
Yeah.
it just totally depends. I mean, if you're getting deals like I was with the yeast, then that's
Yeah.
great margins, right? And we're turning $2.50 into $10 profit. I mean, that's a 4x your ROI, right?
Yeah.
So I've always had very healthy margins with wholesale. I've always had, if you look at it from a top down, if I'm always been around 20% margin, 15% at the low ends.
Hmm.
You know, I mean, but you're always gonna have a bad buy. You're gonna have something that just flops and you lose money on. I always tell my guys, we just want to win more than we lose, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure.
just make sure that we're winning more than we lose. So I've never had too much issue. Just it goes into at the beginning I lost money because I didn't know what I was doing. Just like anybody. So you just
Yeah.
get some mistakes under your belt, and you can kind of say, hey, I'm not going to do that again. I miscalculated that or whatever. And I have a little drawer in my desk, not in this desk, but my home office desk, and it is my mistake drawer. And whenever I make like a major mistake, I put some sort of memorabilia into that drawer that I can open up. And one of the things that I'm thinking of right now was a wholesale mistake. I have a little Microsoft cable, and this cable I bought wholesale, and I was using those UPC tools, and the UPC tool said, "This is a great deal. It's a great deal." And so I went and I listed on Amazon and everything. Well, it turns out it was a different cable than the ASIN that was being advertised on Amazon. So everybody was getting the wrong cable, and I ended up, losing lots of money on that because I had to return all the inventory and all that stuff. But it was a lesson for me to say, just because the UPC tool says that it's the right product,
Yeah.
doesn't mean it's the right product. Double check.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So
For
like,
sure.
and then when so there's just a lot of different mistakes that you make early on, and I'm still making lots of mistakes, but you just constantly get better. And I think Dave Ramsey just said something on a podcast where he's made way more mistakes in number than successes. So his successes are just him standing on a pile of mistakes that he's made over the years. And so I think that's pretty general in any business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, there's a quote running around the back of my head that I'm trying to remember about mistakes, but it might come to me in a minute, and the moment will have passed, but still, it might sound good. The other one that I wanted to ask about is you're sitting there in an office. You got people walking around. And that's a thought about wholesalers. Am I going to need a warehouse? Where am I going to put all this stuff? How do you deal with that?
Well, I've always had my own, where I've had my own I would say distribution center, even when it was just me. Like I would buy the product, ship it to my house, and then ship it to FBA. So I've always done it myself. There are people now that use 3PLs to start. There's 3PLs that are getting a lot better at wholesale than they were
Yeah.
10 years ago, 9 years ago when I started. So I think that there's a big opportunity in that. I don't have a lot of experience using 3PLs for wholesale. I mean, if you're buying a lot of the same item, I could see it being very easy to use a 3PL.
Yeah.
The problem is a lot of times, like I'll buy like a case of this, or and then you're testing things out. So it's not required to have a big warehouse and everything. It's just the way I started. It's the way I'm doing it, and it works for us. I have good people, but I know like Scott Needham, he was like, man, if I would do it over, because he had a big wholesale business, he says I would totally just do 3PLs and just not worry about it, because it's just having a warehouse and having all that is just another headache. And if you could give that headache to someone else, then great. And that's anyway, this is the path I chose, and I thankfully have a good team that does it. But I always have it in the back of my mind, I could go to 3PLs, and I'm always like getting quotes from 3PLs just to stay fresh and realize, okay, it's still cheaper for me to do it myself. But eventually I could do that. But you also, there's something nice about having control of your products, that you're going to care about it more than other people. So I mean, I would recommend starting off doing it yourself, so you learn it, so then you could be more comfortable. But anyway,
I heard someone say many years ago, and it's always stuck with me, that success in business, as in life, is less about resources and much more about resourcefulness. And I think that if you've got someone that really does want to start a business, whether that's wholesale, arbitrage, private label, whatever it is, winners find a way to win. And if you've got a small amount of money, and you can't afford a warehouse, then again, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's, you could always get stuff shipped to your house, right? If you want to start with 500 units, 1,000 units of a product, as long as it's not, a spare wheel for a tractor, right? There's going to be space in most people's houses for 500 to 1,000 units of a product that you can sit there after you get back from work, label it up, get it into an Amazon warehouse. You don't need a warehouse to begin as such.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I worked at my garage for a long time. I actually built a 3-car garage for my wholesale business, and I thought, man, I would never grow out of it.
Yeah. No, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. And then final myth that I could kind of think of is, everyone talks about the benefit of a private label brand is you can sell it. It's an asset.
That's
Can
true.
a wholesale business be sold? Is it an asset?
I'm going to say it can be sold for a lot lower multiples.
Okay.
But I have seen them sold, but very rarely, and a lot lower multiples. So that is something that I would, because it's such a variable, because you might not be selling the same price. It's more about the deal than it is about long term. Now, exclusive wholesale is a different story. If you have exclusive contracts with brands that says, hey, I'm the only person who's allowed to sell this product, you can sell that.
Yeah.
My business, I believe, is a lot higher multiple because of that, because I am the sole exclusive distributor for XYZ companies. Now, that's still, even my business is a lower multiple business than private label. Private label will be the highest multiple business. I know that's category dependent, obviously.
Yeah. As a general rule, yeah.
But as a general rule, I would rather have 10 awesome private label brands and with lower revenues than what I'm doing. Yeah. Now, I would say my goal is, you might be asking, well, why don't you just focus on private label? I did a few private label brands in the beginning, and I just didn't focus on brand. I focused on just commoditized products, and the Chinese beat me, very easily. So what I decided is, how about I do my model where I can make cash flow quicker. I'm actually making money, quicker. But I'm learning from all these brands I'm working with, because all these brands that I'm working with, they all have built their own private label brands, right? In a bigger scale. And when I launch my private label brands, I want to be able to launch them as successfully as possible. I want to launch multi-million-dollar brands. I don't want to launch,
Yeah.
something that I'm making an extra 50 grand a year on. It's like that's not exciting to me. It's like I want to do something that I'm going to do an extra, $1 million, $5 million in revenue, and so that's what my goal is, and so that's the reason behind what I'm doing. So maybe in a couple years after I really get educated, it's like boom, now I have all my resources together, a plan and everything where I can just launch a $5 million brand overnight.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's really wise. A lot of wisdom in there. Final question then, just about for private label brands that maybe want to sell their products wholesale to other
Oh,
distributors.
watch out on that one.
Yeah, well, I'd love to get your thoughts on it. Obviously, I know the dynamic might be a little bit different because a lot of our listeners will already be selling on Amazon, so they won't necessarily be looking for someone to sell on Amazon. But
Right.
whether it's big sort of retail partners or anything like that, I suppose it was just more the SKU economics, in terms of what kind of prices should people be looking for wholesale to make it work, because I know maybe expectations might be a bit different to reality.
Yeah.
And yeah, anything else, it sounds like maybe you have some warnings for people. So yeah,
Well,
give us
the
some.
biggest thing we see is brands that go in and say, "Hey, I'm going to sell to everybody, and I'm going to have this massive distribution. I'm going to make way more money." Um, and then what happens is they already have a really good Amazon ASIN. So then a lot of people come and they're like, other wholesalers are like, "Hey, I'm going to buy your product and I'm going to sell it on Amazon, and then compete against you, and then lower your price, and then it's just a mess, right?"
Yeah,
So
yeah,
be really careful on who you're selling to, and even if you think you're selling to some reputable, distributor, you never know. So, but there's things you can do, things you can put in place to mitigate that. One thing is selling what you sell wholesale as a different UPC, as a different SKU, even though it's very similar to the one you have on Amazon, but make it different so that you can separate those distribution wise. And then if they jump on, you can prove to Amazon and say, "Hey, that's not even the right SKU. That's not even the right product." So I think that's probably one of the easiest ways to do at the beginning. If you're going to go wholesale, I would highly recommend that. And I've also would recommend being channel specific on your UPCs and SKUs, even if you go to Target, Costco, or etc. Because what's going to happen is these discount retailers like Costco, Sam's Club, and there's BJ's and all the discount retailers, they're going to want something better and or a cheaper price than everyone else because they
yeah,
want to sell volume, or even Walmart, right? So if you keep a separate SKU each channel, you can track those things better, and you can also say, "Hey, well, this is a different SKU, this is a bundle, this is a whatever," to kind of give a better experience
yeah,
to your channels. So that's
yeah,
that's one thing I would recommend if you're getting into that.
yeah.
And then
It's a
you
good
asked a
tip.
question about SKU economics.
Yeah, so just in terms of if someone did want to sell wholesale,
Hmm.
okay, for instance, you buy wholesale, right?
Yes.
What are you looking for? Is it 50% of your then target selling price, 40%, 30%?
Depends
What
on the
kind of thing?
category.
Sure.
So electronics is and like appliances and stuff,
Hmm.
they can be as low as like a 3% margin for the reseller.
Mm.
Like as low as that, right? Which
Yeah.
is terrible. There's no way you're making money. That's why you don't see a lot of people like wholesaling TVs or
Mm.
like that because it doesn't make sense. So, but if you're in something like toys and games, it's
Mhm.
very the common thing is called a keystone, which
Mhm.
keystoning is 50% off of your retail price.
Right. Okay.
And then so yeah, that's pretty common in most like
Mm.
hard goods and stuff. Food kind of has its own weird margins
Mm.
because grocery stores take low margins. So you kind of just it's very channel specific, and I
Yeah.
think you just kind of have to jump in with your product to
Mm.
see what you can get. But it's like you want to sell it low enough where your wholesalers can make a good profit, but
Yeah.
also at the same
Yeah.
time you don't want to mess up your Amazon by having your wholesalers selling at way lower prices than Amazon, which maybe might be a good idea. I don't know. I mean, it totally depends on you because, I mean, your Amazon SKU economics, it's probably going to be 30, 40, 50% after ads.
Mm.
It depends. And so anyway,
Yeah,
you just
no,
gotta
it's good, good
jump in.
guide. Yeah,
And
yeah, no, it's a good frame.
if you sell to distributors and then a distributor sells to the wholesaler, there's also the distributor wants some money too. So there's a lot of give and
Yeah,
take.
lots of things to factor in. Yeah, for sure. No, it's good though. This has been super helpful in terms of like an overview. Obviously, we could go way deeper on all of this if we
Yes.
had time. But is there anything maybe that I haven't asked that you feel would be good to share just to round things out, or have we covered everything that you think we should?
Oh, well, like you said, we could talk for
Mm.
hours. There's so many things in wholesale and experience, and depending on where you're at and what you're wanting to do. One myth that I would like to talk about is people think that they can get into wholesale and just sell something because it sells well.
Yeah, right.
I have so many people. It's like beginners that just say, "Wow, this product, sells really well online. I can make money on it." No, that just because it sells really well online, there's a lot of units being sold, does not
Yeah,
mean that you can make money on it. The
yeah, yeah.
riches are in the niches. So I want to remind everybody that if it sells really well, there's a good possibility that that market or that product specifically is already being saturated and there's no margin left for you. So definitely focus on the niches. And because I had somebody the other day said, "Hey, I want to sell like my own drop shipping brand and sell cereal." And I'm like, "What are you going to do? Sell Cheerios?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "No, you're not. That's not going to work, right? You're going to need to sell like some like very specific cereal that is only for bicyclists that are women over the age of 55. Okay, like that's the type of cereal you want to sell. Like you want to get very niche on when you're starting, right? And because then you can charge a higher price, you can have those margins, and also serve more of a better customer. So
Yeah.
anyway, that's my biggest recommendation to everyone.
Yeah, it's good and really helpful. And I think that there will be loads more that people will want to learn, I'm sure. But the good thing about that is you're a genius at this stuff. So where can people find out more about it, learn from you more, connect with you? Where's the best place for people to find you?
Absolutely. So LinkedIn, I'm Isaiah Fritz. Also on Twitter, I'm Isaiah Fritz OSP. Would be good. You could also check out our website. I'm definitely you can always DM me. I'm always there to try to provide value. And I'm always looking. We're looking for brands that are already established brands that are doing millions of dollars in revenue that are non-Amazon focused. That's really our target customer. Non-Amazon focused brands where we can go in and buy wholesale from them and be their exclusive partner. So we have a really good referral program where we pay at minimum $10,000 to sign a contract all the way up to $100,000. So we're always looking for that if you want to reach out. But if any way I can help anyone out there, I want to do it. I had a lot of people help me get to the point where I'm at, and so I always feel like I'm giving back to help someone else. So obviously, I'm not like a super famous dude where I get like billions of DMs every day or something. So I still have, I still can, don't try to take up hours and hours of my time. But like I was saying, if I can help you out, you can definitely DM me, and I'd love to help.
Yeah,
So.
definitely. And you have some events as well. Well, at the time of recording, you've got one just coming up very soon.
Yeah.
By the time it comes out, the event will have gone. But you've got others planned in the future. And I looked at the event, and it's got a killer lineup of speakers. So
Yeah, I'm excited.
these are legit things, man. So people can keep an eye
Ecom
out for
Summit
that.
is what it is, ecomsummit.com. And so it's not just me, but I am one of the owners of the event, one of the founders of the event. And it's kind of a long story how I got into it, but I am not a majority owner of the event. But I'm definitely help promote Ecom Summit. Right now it's in Chicago, August 1st and 2nd. Like you said, it's going to be over by the time we release this, but we'd love you guys to keep an eye out and get on our email list for more events in the future. So we're thinking about having multiple events a year, not just like one event a year, and maybe different locales in the United States besides Chicago. So it's an event company. So that's what it is. It's an event company for the Amazon niche. an e-commerce niche show, definitely follow us, and we'd love, our only goal is to provide value and to help each other be more profitable. So that's our goal.
Amazing. Good stuff. Well, thank you so much for taking time out to be on the show. I know you're very busy. It's been a value-packed episode. Appreciate you coming on.
Thanks, Ben. You're a great guy.
Thanks, man. And I hope you guys have enjoyed it listening as well and got loads out of that. If you do want to connect with Isaiah, make sure you do that. We'll put the links in the show notes and the description below. Explore this potential revenue stream, exciting opportunities out there for sure. And if we can help with anything, please do get in touch. And we'll see you in the next episode, same time next week. Take care.